Hello, this is John Marshall. This video presentation is in partial fulfillment of computer science information course I'm taking at Renton Technical College, Computer Science Information 242 Client-Side Scripting. I'm going to briefly run through my midterm project and share with you some of the work I've been doing. First of all, I've been using this entity framework, which is an object relational mapping framework. It's a expedited means of getting a relational database established and having the fields, the schema in that database mapped to Visual Sharp classes inside of a model view controller architecture framework for web applications. And basically the first step in this was to establish a database on Server Explorer, and then to create tables, and after creating the tables, to provide models through an ADO.NET Entity Model Framework, and then using this connection strategy to connect those database tables to the model framework. And after that, it becomes established inside of your application. And so that's a really fast and really rough view of establishing this framework, this entity framework. But I'm going to go through the actual project files and basically show you how that looks now. So this is Visual Studio, Microsoft Visual Studio, and my project is this database right here, and these are my tables over here in this Discovery Park vegetation database, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tables in there right now, and you can see these tables in the framework over in the Solution Explorer on the right side of the screen. They are basically, each of these models is representing the fields in the table that it describes. So for this particular model, which is describing the site, over here in the site table, if I open it up, you'll see the same fields in the site table. Likewise, if I go to the sample plots model, you'll see if I open up that, those same fields are represented in that table in the database. So basically these fields were mapped to these models in C#, and this is what enables functionality within the program to manifest the data in these databases onto a web-based application where viewers can interact with that database through web pages, which is basically the overall purpose of the project. So I'm going to briefly show you how that looks in the application before I go back and start describing a little bit more about how the functions are set up. So I'm running the program now, and this is my applications page, and that basically gives a description of the title of the project and a little bit of information about it. Then I have an about page, which kind of goes into a little more detail about what the project's all about. I have a contact page, which offers some additional resources that I have. This, by the way, is a database that I created in an earlier project that I am using to now inform the database I created in this Microsoft SQL server application. So, okay. That, and there. So I'll come up through here and go back and run this again. Okay, and this is a view of what that sample plot table looks like in the database in the create, read, update, and delete options that are provided through this particular view. I'm also working on another view that specifically focuses in on particular metrics that I'm interested in displaying in the database, but I'm still having some problem connecting the actual results of my basically a stored procedure query to manifest itself inside this view at this time. So I'm going to go back now and come out of the application here and go back into this. Basically, as I mentioned before earlier, this is a situation where we have three primary components of this application, and the first one is in the models. It's in this here, and these are all the models that I have in my application. And the next one is in the controller, and that's right here in my controllers. I'll expand that. These are my controllers. This is the controller that I have showing the sample plots, enabling those sample plots that I just displayed on the view screen. Basically, I can link from these methods or these functions to specific views, and so those views then are what manifest themselves up into that web page, and this is called a razor view, where all the C# code is inside these @ designations. That's what's called razor code, and you can see these lambda expressions help display those fields and the data inside those fields via this action. The action in this controller that's right here in the index, and that is the default index, and that actually, as I mentioned before, is linked to this view, and that view is what we saw a few minutes ago. We also have the views are down here in a separate folder, and these separations of models, controllers, and views, this can be described as a concept of separation of concerns, which is a way of organizing our application into a logical set of components that are connected to one another, but also each can be worked on individually and with minimal, I guess, the idea is that if you work on one side of it, your chances of making changes that will alter or modify the ability of your application to successfully run will be lessened significantly by having this organization established ahead of time through this entity framework. So basically, another thing that's going to be of real interest here in the views is this shared view part and this layout page here. And you'll remember that in the part about the On the top bar of the application that we were looking at earlier, you have those home, about, contact, and sample plots. All of that is manifest itself where you establish in these action links, which are come back to your controller, which of your actions is being called, and the home is the default. Excuse me, the name of your the first thing here is the name that appears up on your bar. The next one is the action method or function, and the index is the default. And then the last is basically showing where this is actually what is actually showing up on the screen up there. So so basically, oh, I'm sorry. This last one is actually showing the controller that this is linking to, which are the controllers. So these three are linked to my home controller. You notice I have a home controller here. Those three were linked to that one, and then this last one, the sample plots, was linked to my sample plots controller, which is this one. So yeah, and then you notice that I had that last view that was not functioning correctly. I've been playing around with a controller to help get that established. I've got it partially established here with this this controller here, but it's not completely working right now. I've got some code in here, but much of it is marked out because I'm having problems getting my stored procedure, which is basically this right here. The stored procedure right here is the one that I'm trying to call, and so I want to basically get this SQL query and the results of that execution of that query in my tables, my database table, to show up on that last view screen. And that's what that code in this particular controller is aiming at. But so far, we're having some problems getting that established. So that's really a rough thumbnail sketch of what I'm doing here. There's a lot of work still to be done. But basically, I've gone through the entity framework process of getting that established, getting my getting all my tables and the table schema set up, and then going back and getting those mapped to classes. And well, excuse me, the schema. Let me show that one more time just for illustration. The schemas are here, and the models are plot number, that would be for extra view index. So for this one, and then the controllers that we're coming back to get those and established over to views, which that should be there. Okay, so that's a rough idea of what's going on, and hopefully that is of use. And thank you for taking the time to watch this. Bye.